Refs really are one of the most fascinating aspects in all of sports. They typically aren't talked about whatsoever leading into a game, unless it's Scott Foster, but after the game, it always seems like a leading story is about a bad call from the refs that changed the game in one way or another. Fans will complain, but at the end of the day, everyone knows there's nothing we can really do about it. Refs are human. These games are happening at incredible speeds, and it's impossible to flawlessly determine what happens in the split second where a penalty may or may not have occurred. It's almost a commonality now to, instead of talking down about your favorite team and what they could have done better after a loss, blame the refs, because obviously, if the game didn't go the way you thought it would, there has to have been some kind of mistake made by the officiating crew. If they called that PI, we would have won. That obviously was a foul on the last shot. He didn't even touch his leg. How is that tripping? Refs really are the ultimate scapegoat nowadays. Now, with where our world is going, it's pretty feasible that within the next 50 some odd years, we won't have refs in striped shirts walking around anymore at all. It will all be AI and robots who can flawlessly determine with complete precision if a penalty happened or not, but we've still got some time before that happens. And with that time, I want to understand refs better, understand the training they go through, the schedule they work, the influence they have, all to answer the question: how do these professional referees with extensive training get it wrong so often? In all sports, the process of becoming a referee is pretty much the same and pretty much exactly what you would expect. Start by reffing some youth leagues, then high school, then college, then minor leagues, then the pros, with plenty of training courses in between. Which sounds easy enough, but that doesn't take into consideration the time and luck that it takes to become a professional official. It takes an average of just about 10 years of officiating experience to just break into the college level. And for most, just like the athletes, college is as far in their profession as they're gonna get. The jump from college to the pros is as hard and unlikely as it is for the individuals actually playing the games. There are only 121 people in the world qualified to officiate an NFL game. The NBA and NHL have around 75 a season. To make the leap, it takes exceptional knowledge of the game, mental fortitude, and connections that tell a guy about you. All of this is to say the refs you see and take for granted every time you're watching a game are truly the best of the best, just as much of pros as the athletes are. And contrary to popular belief, they're paid like it. NHL and NBA refs officiate 75 to 80 games a year and make anywhere from $1 to $500,000 a year. All of this only fueled my curiosity about refs. If these are the best in the world who have spent at least over a decade practicing and refining their skills as officials, how do they miss this call, and this call, and this call? There are so many factors to this, obviously, and no one solution or realization will solve every single missed call in the history of sports, but there are definitely a few factors that aren't discussed that absolutely carry weight in the referee community. One of which is the fact that the best refs don't want to be refs at all these days. Aaron Rodgers said this on Pat McAfee's show a year or so ago, and for some reason, even though it's Aaron Rodgers, this flew completely under the radar. When talking about former referee Gene Steratore being on TV, he said, "All the great refs, Gene being one of them, they're not working for the league or for the NCAA. They're working for the TV deals because that's where the money's at. So you got a lot of great ones. Terry McCauly is one of them, who is always a great referee. He's working on TV now. Obviously, Gene, who is one of my all-time favorites, but there's a great referee usually for all these networks who was a great white cap, who is not working for the league, but is working for TV." And he's got a point. With more and more companies broadcasting these games, the demand for referees on TV to explain what's happening to the fans is only increasing. And if you're a network, who are you going to hire? Probably the officials with the best reputations around the league. Now, you might say, well, that's only a handful of refs making that switch. That's kind of irrelevant. But the way these officiating crews work has a lot to do with the crew chief. The crew chief, as it's commonly referred to, is the captain of the referees. It's his job to practically oversee the whole game. He's the main person the players will talk to. He will have final say over reviewed plays and will make the final decision on penalties that refs in the crew may disagree on. All refs are not created equal. and the leagues are losing some of their most elite official leaders to the broadcast booth. Guys that would be in charge of officiating big playoff games and potentially finals games. But the biggest issue with the refs isn't their technical ability or understanding of the game. It's the fact that they have human brains that are influenced by outside noise just like any of us would. Obviously, these people have greater mental fortitude than the average man, but after being yelled at all game by everyone in the stadium, no matter who they're cheering for, there is no doubt that must take somewhat of a toll on them mentally. The fans, the players, the coaches, everyone wants to give you a piece of their mind. If you think that doesn't at least somewhat significantly affect their ability to effectively make consistent, lucid calls, then I don't think you've played sports at a high level before, because as someone who's played in big games and in front of a lot of people, it's obviously a completely different and more pressurized situation than just playing at an open gym. I bet if all of these refs were told to just watch a game on TV or ref without any outside influence whatsoever, these guys would make the right call 99 times out of 100. They know what a penalty looks like. They've been training for at least a decade to properly determine what calls should and shouldn't be made, but at the end of the day, they're just normal humans, affected by circumstances and pressure the same as you and I. So what do we do about this? You're probably asking. And I have a solution that is a little outside of the box, but I genuinely think it would do wonders for these leagues who week after week have another story about terrible officiating. There should be Navy SEAL-esque mental toughness training for these officials. The SEALs and other military factions have mental training ingrained into their training philosophy, so soldiers can maintain calmness, awareness, and focus in the heat of the most stressful and demanding situations imaginable. Now, refs are not Navy SEALs. I'm not saying they are. Navy SEALs are some of the toughest and most amazing superheroes we have on the planet, and I hold them in the highest possible respect. But in the context of sports, these refs are going into the highest of pressurized situations themselves. Imagine reffing a finals game knowing that one call you make could be the difference between you keeping your job or being spat at every time you walk through the town of the team you just screwed. That's pressure. Refs are taught extensively about the rules of the game and how it should go on paper, but there seems to be very little learning available for refs to maintain a completely clear head throughout a game. I'm not talking about actual Navy SEAL mental training, mind you. Deciding if a tackle held someone is nothing close to having to do missions in the pitch black of the ocean with enemy submarines trying to get you, but a lighter version of that same type of mental training, I think, could be invaluable to these people who have had so much pressure on them to be perfect. It would help with keeping out outside influences that will always be there and make the ref's already impossible job of calling a clean game a bit easier. At the end of the day, there is no perfect solution to the reffing issue. Unfortunately, believe it or not, human beings are flawed and make mistakes. But I truly don't feel like every effort has been made by these leagues to make officiating as good as it can possibly be. The NFL doesn't even have full-time refs at all. These guys are bankers and other common Joes whenever it isn't a football Sunday, and that just doesn't sit right with me. For a league that makes over $13 billion a year, it might be a good idea for the refs to have training and refresher courses throughout the week, especially as the league continues to change big rules every offseason. Still, no one seems to know what a catch is, and the players are getting better and better at being deceptive with their cheating. Another really simple change I would make is having the refs do press conferences after the games just like players do. They're getting paid a good chunk of change to go out there and perform in front of millions just like the players. Why shouldn't they be held accountable in the media? I would love to hear what was going through a ref's head and what the process was when they made certain decisions. It doesn't make sense to me that the refs just leave after the game was decided by a bad call and the coaches have to clean up the media mess by themselves. It might also help them focus more knowing that they're going to have to face real accountability for their decisions after the game. Refs have one of the toughest jobs in the world while they're working. All that refs should be fined and suspended for bad calls noise, I don't agree with unless under the most extreme circumstances. I wish the leagues these individuals are employed by would do right by them by providing all resources possible to make their jobs as seamless and second nature as they can possibly be. Because right now, I do not believe they are. Thank you all so much for watching. I'd like to know your thoughts on the reffing issue. Am I out of my mind? Do I make some good points? What do you guys think is going on? Let me know in the comment section below. I am small enough as to where I can read all comments and love doing so. Please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed what you heard. Please subscribe. We just hit over 350 subscribers on the Spit Sports Show. Big stuff happening here. And as always, I will see you in the next one. Peace out.